are to 8 o'clock, so we can start. So, what you have to read? Simply, maybe you can read today.
Yeah, I will read.
Yeah, as we are ignorant.
As we are ignorant of our existence in time, except the small hour which we remember, so we are ignorant of ourselves in space, except the small span of which we are mentally and sensationally conscious, the single body that moves there, and the mind and life which are identified with it, and we regard the environment as a not self we have to deal with and use. It is this identification and this conception that form the life of the ego. Space, according to one view, is only the coexistence of things or of souls. The Sankhya affirms the plurality of souls and their independent existence, and their coexistence is then only possible by the unity of nature force, their field of experience, Prakriti. But even granting this, the coexistence is there, and it is in the end coexistence in one being. Space is the self-conceptive extension of that one being. It is the one spiritual existence displaying the field of movement of its conscious force in its own self as space. Because that conscious force concentrates in manifold bodies, lives, minds, and the soul preside over one of them. Therefore, our mentality is concentrated in this and regards it as itself and all the rest as not self, just as it regards its one life on which it concentrates by a similar ignorance as its whole term of existence, cut off from the past and the future. Yet, 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 we cannot really know our own mentality without knowing the one mind, our own vitality without knowing the one life, our own body without knowing the one matter. For not only is their nature determined by the nature of that, but by that their activities are at every moment being influenced and determined. But with all this sea of being flowing in on us, we do not participate in its consciousness, but know of it only so much as can be brought into the surface of our mind and coordinated there. The world lives in us, thinking in us, form itself in us. But we imagine that it is we who live, think, become separately by ourselves and for ourselves. As we are ignorant of our timeless, of our superconscient, of our subliminal and subconscious selves, so are we ignorant of our universal self. This alone saves us that ours is an ignorance, which is full of the impulse, and strive irresistibly, eternally, by the very law of its being, towards the realization of self-possession and self-knowledge. A many-sided ignorance, striving to become an all-embracing knowledge, is the definition of the consciousness of man, the mental being. Or, or looking at it from another side, we may say fully that it is a limited separative awareness of things striving to become an integral consciousness and an integral knowledge.
This is the last para of this chapter, the boundaries of the ignorance. So, let's summarize everything very clearly. So, the whole problem of man is because he is ignorant, avidya. So, he has to go from avidya to vidya. Okay. So, what is exactly vidya and avidya? What is knowledge and what is ignorance? We must have very clear idea of what is ignorance. When you are in ignorance, you do not know yourself, you do not know the universe, and you do not know from where you have come. You do not know what is the aim of life, why you have come into the physical world, and what is the purpose of life. All these things you don't know at all, that is ignorance. Now to be more specific, when you are seeing the multiplicity in the world, when you are seeing everything and you think that that's the only reality, that is ignorance. When you see separation, when you see the material world and you think that that's the only thing, these are all the signs of ignorance. When you don't know what is going to come tomorrow, this is ignorance. So what is knowledge? The remover of all the ignorances. So I'm going to list 7 ignorances in another chapter. Okay. We don't know from where we come. We don't know the divine. We don't know ourselves. Even our own nature we don't know. Sometimes we hesitate. It's very simple. We don't even know whether I want something or not, whether I should do something or not. So this is all signs of ignorance. So this is saying, he has told you what the boundaries are. The boundaries are, I'm summarizing what he said in the whole chapter. The boundaries are, if you look below, the ignorance is getting more and more dense. First of all, there is a subconscious. Then there is the inconscious, which is the total lack of light and knowledge. Okay, it is there, but it is suppressed. It is there in seed form. What is there in seed form? The divine knowledge, power, ananda, everything is there in seed form in the inconscious. Otherwise, there won't be any possibility of evolution. So, but it is seed form. So, then what about left and right? Okay, this is going down. If you go to the left or to the right, depending on where you are, I would rather use the word inside and outside. Inside, if you go, then there is a subliminal being. Okay, that you also partly the ignorance disappears. Even if you go into deep into your subliminal and get the experience of the self, the psychic being, even then there is ignorance. Ignorance is there. You get knowledge, you get devotion and love for the divine, but you may not get knowledge. Some amount of knowledge comes at a lower level, but not at the higher level. So if you want to see the oneness, then there is something which is, so I said inside. Now if you go outside, that is what science is trying to do. Outside means into the physical world in front of you. That science is trying to do very sincerely, but they are taking a long time to understand what is the reality. They are going from the many to the one, but that will take a long time. Whereas the Vedantic philosophy says, why go to the many? Go to the one directly, go into yourself. Go into yourself and you will find the source of everything. And if you know the source of everything, you will come to know also the many. What is coming out of the source, you will come to know. Then there is a vertical up. This is where knowledge comes in. And knowledge goes on getting more and more wide, more and more accurate, more and more precise as you keep climbing, and going up in consciousness. Okay? It's your consciousness which is going up. Then all the other characteristics of the divine also start revealing themselves to you. Ananda, power, okay? What is freedom? What is, all these things start getting shown to you. So Sridhar lists 3 levels, if you want, in a very general way. Level 1 is our physical world, where we see the many and we think that to be the reality. We see everybody else and we think that yes, this is the reality. Level 2, spiritual planes of consciousness. Your consciousness goes out of the body-mind life. It is not subject to body-mind life anymore, and it gets a good deal of knowledge, 10 times more than what you have in the physical world, but still it is incomplete. That is level 2. Level 2 is where most of the Indian philosophies say it's enough, because you come to know the Brahman, you come to know the oneness of things. But there is a difference between level 1 and level 2. They are not together at all. The one is false and one is real. The one in the Brahmic consciousness is real. The physical world is illusion and not real. So to heal this gulf, you have to go to the 3rd level, which is the supermind. Okay. There you will see that the divine is there everywhere, and there is no gap at all. There is no unreality. There is no nihil. There is no shunyam. There is no the illusion. There is no illusion. Everything is divine. This is what he has been telling us in the this chapter. Next chapter is what is the origin of ignorance. Okay. In other words, if you want to understand, when does the one starts becoming the two and becoming four and becoming eight? So because you are going from one to the many, and when you go into the many, there are gradations. Okay. So very briefly I'll tell you, and then we'll start reading the paragraph that we read today. So when the one becomes the two, okay, Purusha and Prakriti separate themselves. Consciousness and force. Consciousness is Purusha and Prakriti is force. They come down to the overmind level and they separate themselves. Even in the supermind, there are three levels. Level one is total oneness. Okay, total oneness, but with the possibility of the many coming into the picture. The absolute oneness is even above supermind. In fact, there is no possibility there also of the many. That's the absolute one. That's the absolute oneness. That is above the supermind. Then the supermind, the first level is I'll give the image of the sea. Okay, the sea is absolutely calm, transparent, without any movement at all, static. This is the oneness. There is only oneness in the sea. Second level, the sea starts making forms. It starts making waves. But the waves are not well defined. They are only swellings. If you sit on the sea beach and see, the wave starts with a little bit of a swell. The water gets swollen up a little bit. And then it starts traveling towards the shore. So that is the level 2 of this three status, the triple status of the supermind in this chapter. So that is the forms have begun to be made, but they are still not yet very, very clearly made. So if you are experiencing, if an individual experiences the static first status of the supermind, he will see only oneness without any possibility of any physical world. You will see only oneness. It's the divine in himself and nothing else. No, universe is not even there. Only oneness. Then if you experience the second aspect, you will see that your own being, okay, you have become conscious of your individuality, but you know that you are part of the sea. And what is the sea? It's a sea of consciousness, it's a sea of force, it's a sea of ananda, it's a sea of power. Okay, so there is the oneness. Then you come down to the third level, triple status of the supermind. The third level, the wave has now become a clear form. Okay, but still it is conscious of the sea. Okay, the individual experiencing this knows that I am separate, but still I am also part of the sea. The difference between the second and third is this, that the individual is more conscious of the sea than his own being, his own individuality. But at the third level, the individuality is more real to him than the sea. Then you come down to the overmind level, the ignorance starts. The ignorance means the many become a possibility. At that time, you are vaguely aware of the oneness of things, but the individuality becomes more. So that is the origin of the ignorance. In the next chapter, I will tell you, is the overmind consciousness, just below the supermind. That is the origin of the ignorance. That's right. So now, with this background, we'll start reading the paragraph that we have to read today, the last paragraph of the chapter. As we are ignorant of our existence in time, in other words, what it means is we do not know that we had a past life in time. Not only one past life, we have got many, many past lives and we are not conscious of them at all. We are ignorant totally of them. So when you climb in consciousness and go to the spiritual level of consciousness, you start realizing what you were in your old other life, previous life. You also get a hint of what is going to come also. Okay. So as we are ignorant of our existence in time, we are conscious only of existence in this life, not in time with a tea cap. We are conscious of our existence in time, lowercase t. Okay, so time is the eternal time, we are not conscious. But temporary time, we are conscious. Yes, I exist in the world. So this is what Shabda is saying. As we are ignorant of our existence in time, eternal time, except the small hour which we remember. Okay, Shabda is using a very interesting word. Small hour, the present life, okay, which we remember. We are ignorant of ourselves in space, except the small span of which we are mentally and sensationally conscious. Just as we don't know ourselves, we don't know ourselves in space. I don't know what's there in the next. I'm in Pondicherry, and even Pondicherry, how much do I know? I'm just sitting in my room. That's the only space I know. If I go somewhere else, maybe 10 meters around myself, I'm conscious. Okay, but there is, I don't know. So we are ignorant in time and we are ignorant in space. And if you take space with an S cap, the whole universe, where are you? You don't know. So, there was I had a former student, okay, who was very open to nature. She had many experiences of nature. And one day, when she was swimming in the sea, okay, she was just floating on the sea, and she looked up, and she had the feeling that she's a minuscule, minor, she is like an atom in this vastness. Okay? It is a beautiful experience. Okay? That's what we felt. But we don't think that like that. We don't think ourselves to be small. Okay, sometimes we exaggerate ourselves and say we are very big. I've got this, I've got that, I'm running this, I'm running that. Okay, so we are not conscious at all of what we are in the physical universe, except the small span of which we are mentally and sensationally conscious. The single body that moves there, and the mind and the life which are identified with it. Okay? Our mind and life are identified with the body. Okay? And we regard the environment as a not self. This is me, and everything else is not me. It is separate from me. We have to deal with and use. This is also another thing. We feel that we have to use the universe. Whatever is there, I have to use it. Actually, you don't realize that the universe is using you, okay, for its own purpose. That this is what we don't realize. We say that the universe exists for my benefit. Okay. Even if we don't think of it in that way, we actually behave in that way. That's the important thing. It is this identification and this conception that form the life of the ego. So he has given a different interpretation, a different definition of what is ignorance. We don't know ourselves in eternal time, we don't know ourselves in eternal space, or rather infinite space, and we think that we are separate from everybody else. Sense of separation. And that is ignorance. And that is because of the ego. The ego limits you to yourself and does not allow you to go beyond your own limits. Space, according to one view, is only the coexistence of things or of souls. So this, according to one view. So I will give a different interpretation. This Sankhya philosophy affirms the plurality of souls and their independent existence. There is a partial truth to this. Okay? That is, in the physical world, yes, we are separate. Not only that, even all the souls which are there, essentially they may be one divine element, but they are separate. Even two souls, when they are realized their souls, they will feel themselves to be separate in the physical world. If they go higher up, they will feel themselves to be common. There is something common to all. Okay, but this is the ego gets dissolved, and then you start seeing the oneness of things. So, space, according to one view, is only the coexistence of things or of souls. But this is our conception, that the space is that which contains everything, okay? And including souls, although we don't see the souls. The Sankhya affirms the plurality of souls and their independent existence. Independent existence. It is true that they are separate, but they are not independent. Whereas Sankhya is saying they are independent. Okay. I don't depend on the others. We have seen many often that we do depend on everybody else. The universe, we depend on the universe and everything in the universe. Okay, so that is the, yes, that is the, in this chapter, earlier chapter, in the earlier paragraphs of this chapter. Space, according to one view, is only the coexistence of things and souls. The Sankhya affirms the plurality of souls and their independent existence. And their coexistence is then only possible by the unity of nature force. The unity of nature force, their field of experience. So field of experience, if you go out, you feel that, still we will explain now what is meaning, okay? So it's Prakriti. Okay. But even granting this, the coexistence is there, and it is in the end coexistence in one being. We all exist in one being. Space, now James is giving his own interpretation of space. Space is the one self-conceptive conception of that one being. Now, a very interesting sentence, just see. If there is only the divine, nothing else, okay, the world is not there, only the divine, and he wants to create the universe, what's he doing? He is creating the universe within himself. He is infinite. He doesn't need to expand. There's a way of saying that you can expand, but he doesn't need to expand because he is everything. So he is creating the whole universe within himself. So if he is creating within himself, okay, then you can say that it's a self-conceptive. It is my conception. It's a thought. The universe is a thought of God. That also is sometimes spoken of in that way. We have to use your imagination and understand what is saying. Only the divine is there and he is creating the universe. So where is he creating the universe? Out of himself? No, not out of himself, in himself. Okay? So that's a self-conception. Just as you can also have a thought. Okay? The divine also has a thought and is creating it. So that is space. Self-conceptive extension of that one being. Okay? You have to think of it as extension because then it's a sort of coming out, but really it is all within himself only. The point starts becoming the circle, and the circle starts becoming the circumference, and the circumference go on expanding until finally it becomes infinite and you can't even see it. Okay? So it is the one spiritual existence. Existence is the substance that he's talking about. E cap. Okay? The subtlest of substance. It is the one spiritual substance, existence, displaying the field of movement of its conscious force in its own self as space. There you go. Okay? So he first creates a space and then with his conscious force he creates forms in it. Okay? Displaying the field of movement because in himself there is no movement. But creation involves movement and there is constant movement in the physical world. Displaying the field of movement of its conscious force in its own self as space. So he has given a totally different interpretation of space. So space is nothing but a self-conception of the divine into which he puts all his forms. Because that conscious force concentrates in manifold bodies, all everybody's bodies, it concentrates itself. Okay? It starts making different forms and goes into each form. Lives, minds, and the soul, lives, I read wrong. Okay? Concentrates in manifold bodies, lives, minds, and the soul, presides over one of them. Therefore, our mentality is concentrated in this and regards this as itself. What is that this? Body, life, and mind. And the soul presides over one of them. Okay? Therefore, our mentality is concentrated in this and regards this as itself, and all the rest is not self. That's a division occurs. Just as it regards its one life on which it concentrates, by similar ignorance as its whole term of existence, cut off from the past and the future. So just as we don't know ourselves in eternal time, we don't know ourselves also in infinite space. So this is the ignorance. The whole term of existence cut off from the past and the future. Yet, we cannot really know our own mentality without knowing the one mind. So, now he is coming to the cosmic consciousness. So, if you want to know what your mind is, then you have to know the world, the universe of mind. And you are just one small formation of that mind. It's like the vast sea which makes one small wave. And that wave has to realize that it is part of the sea. And again, we come back to the idea, what is that sea? It can be of substance, it can be of mind, it can be of power, shakti, it can also be of ananda. And it can also be consciousness, because Satchidananda is there. So, in fact, I am saying separately, but they are all only one. You can experience them separately, but they are all one. You can have the experience of only the Sat. You can have experience of only the Chit. You can have the experience only of Ananda. And you can have experience only of power, separately. Okay? But Siddhartha wants you to have all of them together at the highest level. Yet we cannot really know our own mentality without knowing the one mind. Our own vitality without knowing the one life. Similarly, your vital is a small formation of the universal life force, prana. It is there everywhere. Our own body without knowing the one matter. It's easy to understand this if you take your body. Your body is a small formation of matter. Matter is there in the universe, vast, spread out everywhere. Your body is just one element in that. It's like the, again we can give the example of the, two examples we can give. One is a wave and the sea. And the other is a huge amount of clay. And a small pot is made from that clay. Okay? So we are the pot. And the universe is the infinite clay. So we can think of it that way also. So, for not only is their nature determined by the nature of that. So, in other words, the wave is nothing but the water of the sea. It's nothing else. It is just that. So, your body is nothing but matter. Your life is nothing but universal mind. Universal life. Your mind is nothing but a small knot of universal mind. Similarly, your soul also is a small part, Amsha Sanatana, as the Gita says. It's a small part of the, here they use the word oversoul or the universal soul. You can use the word God, but if you want philosophy, then you can think of oversoul or universal soul. Okay? Your soul also is one small particle. So that one small soul has to merge itself in the universal soul. That is the aim of our yoga. So I now go to the next sentence. Okay. For not only is their nature determined by the nature of that, but by their activities also are at every moment being influenced and determined. So the universe is conditioning you. Okay. The wave cannot be anything else but what the sea and the is telling it to do. Okay. It may be a small one, it may be a big one, it can be moving very fast towards the shore, it may be moving very slowly towards the shore, or even the swell may not even become a wave. The sea is determining all these things. The universe is determining what you are. There is the experience you have when you go to the level 2 of the spiritual planes, you find that you are doing nothing at all. Your body-mind life is actually being used by universal Prakriti as a puppet. It is making you dance according to its own plan and its own behavior. You are just a reflection of the universal Prakriti. Okay? Now, but with all this sea of being flowing in on us, okay, there is a constant interchange between the universe and yourself. At the physical level, it's very clear. I am eating food which is supplied by the universe and I am putting it into myself. Okay. Now, this is exactly what happens also at the vital level. The vital level, the universal prana, is putting all sorts of vibrations into you. You are not even aware of it. And then universal mind is sending thoughts into your mind. You are not conscious. You think that you are thinking. Actually, you are not thinking at all. So, now the next sentence is very clear. What should they say? It will explain that. The world lives in us and is conditioning us. The world lives in us, thinks in us, forms itself in us. But we imagine that it is we who live, think, become separately by ourselves and for ourselves. The for ourselves is the ego. We don't live for the universe. As we are ignorant of our timeless, of our superconscious, of our subliminal and subconscious selves, so we are ignorant of the universal self. The universal self. This alone saves us, that ours is an ignorance which is full of the impulse and strives irresistibly, eternally, by the very law of its being, towards the realization of self-possession and self-knowledge. There is a desire in man to know the universe, but also to know himself. The desire to know oneself is much, much rarer than the desire to know the universe. Because the desire to know the universe is science. Okay? Science is doing that very, very systematically. But it's not going inwards. It has started to go inwards now. Okay? I read the next sentence. A many-sided ignorance, striving to become an all-embracing knowledge, is the definition of the consciousness of man, the mental being. So, the mental being, Manomaya Purusha, is trying to go from ignorance to knowledge. He wants to know more and more, wants to know more and more. Is the definition of consciousness. Or, looking at it from another side, we may say equally that it's a limited, separative awareness of things, striving to become an integral consciousness and an integral knowledge. So he has told us that the ignorance in man, there is something in him which is wanting to get rid of the ignorance, shake it off and get knowledge. We want to get rid of our ignorance and we want to get knowledge. We want to get rid of our incapacity and we want to get power. We want to get rid of our suffering and we want to get the ananda. But in a very vague way. So the higher you go, the more precise it becomes. So there is the boundaries of the ignorance. So where are the boundaries? Below, subconscious and inconscious, outside in the physical world as well as inside you, also the ignorance becomes less. In science also it's becoming less, and inside you also the subliminal becomes less. And it also starts becoming less as you keep traveling up. So where does it become absolutely least and disappears, the ignorance? That's the next chapter. And that he will tell you is the overmind. When you go into the supermind, no more ignorance, full knowledge. Okay? So, this is 834. So we have to read the next chapter, chapter 12, the origin of the ignorance. So, ignorance, avidya, lack of knowledge, not knowing ourselves to be eternal self and soul, that I have always existed in the past and I will continue to exist in the future, unless you decide to dissolve your own being. That also is possible. That's what the Buddhists want. Okay? That's the aim in Buddhism and Mayavada. So, we have 6 minutes. Maybe we can read the next one, the origin of the ignorance. Okay? We can just read it. So, Yasmin, you have the text?
Yasmin is not like.
She is not replying. So,
Life Divine, I don't have.
right. So,
I'm sorry.
No problem. So, Shilpa was, Shilpa, you can read. We just read it. We'll look at it tomorrow.
Chapter 8, the origin of the ignorance. By energism of consciousness, Brahman is massed. From that, matter is born, and from matter, life and mind and the worlds. Mundak Upanishad. He desired, may I be many. He concentrated in tapas. By tapas, he created the world. Creating, he entered into it. Entering, he became the existent, and the beyond existence, he became the expressed and the unexpressed. He became knowledge and ignorance. He became the truth and the falsehood. He became the truth. Even all this, whatsoever that is, that truth they call him. Taittiriya Upanishad. Energism of consciousness is Brahman. Taittiriya Upanishad. Shall I continue? Okay, we'll explain. Shall I continue or
Pardon?
shall I
Wait.
continue or we will explain this?
No, no, no. We'll see this tomorrow. You just read the first paragraph.
Okay.
It becomes necessary.
No, that's what. Shall I continue reading? It becomes necessary.
Yes, yes. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. It becomes necessary
long
and
paragraph.
possible now that so much has been fixed to consider at close quarters the problem of the ignorance from the point of view of its pragmatic origin, the process of consciousness which brought it into existence. It is on the basis of an integral oneness as the truth of existence that we have to consider the problem and see how far the different possible solutions are on this basis applicable. How could this manifold ignorance or this narrowly self-limiting and separative knowledge arise and come into action or maintain itself in action in an absolute? Being who must be absolute consciousness and therefore cannot be subject to ignorance. How is even an apparent division effectively operated and kept in continuance in the indivisible? The being integrally one cannot be ignorant of itself, and since all things are itself, conscious modifications, determinations of its being, it cannot either by ignorant of things of their true nature, of their true action. But though we say that we are, that the Jivatman or individual self is no other than the Paramatman, no other than the absolute, yet we are certainly ignorant both of ourselves and things from which this contradiction results, that what must be in its very grain incapable of ignorance is yet capable of it, and has plunged itself into it by some will of its being or some necessity or possibility of its nature. We do not ease the difficulty if we plead that mind, which is the seat of ignorance, is a thing of Maya, non existent, not Brahman, and that Brahman, the Absolute, the sole existence, cannot in any way be touched by the ignorance of mind, which is part of the illusory being. Asat, the non existence, this is an escape which is not open to us if we admit an integral oneness, for then it is evident that in making so radical a distinction and at the same time cancelling by terming it illusory, we are using the magic or maya of thought and word in order to conceal from ourselves the fact that we are dividing and denying the unity of the Brahman, for we have erected two opposite powers, Brahman incapable of illusion and self-illusive Maya, and pitchfork them into an impossible unity. If Brahman is the sole existence, Maya can be nothing but a power of Brahman, a force of his consciousness or a result of his being. And if the Jivatman, one of the Brahman, is subject to its own Maya, the Brahman in it subject to Maya. But this is not instinctively or fundamentally possible. The subjection can only be a submission of something in nature to an action of nature, which is part of the conscious and free movement of the spirit in things, a play of its own self-manifesting omniscience. Ignorance must be a part of the movement of the one, a development of its consciousness, knowingly adopted, to which it is not forcibly subjected, but which it uses for its cosmic purpose.
Very, very interesting para, and he will make our minds expand like anything. Have a look at this tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday, and we will have a look at this. It will take us the whole one period to see. It's so subtle. See, he's saying ignorance is a part of the movement of the one. So ignorance is self-willed. Okay. So how is that and what it is? We'll have a look at it. There's so many different ways of looking at it. So, au revoir, everybody. Today is the au revoir.
Thank you, Rangaji.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Ranga.
Okay.
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay. I'm closing.